That's Russell Boyce doing the countdown. My name's Paul John Dykes and this is the ACSOM Bulletin. We cover every game, Boycey. Every game. We cover Celtic women's games. Colin Watt has been watching the Bonnyrigg Rose versus Celtic Colts game earlier today. He'll be joining us in a few minutes' time to give us an update on what the team looked like and how they performed. But today, Celtic are back at Celtic Park. It's the first time that fans have been in that stadium since March last year. And it's the first game at home since Ange Postecoglou arrived as a manager. So, to be honest with you, I think this week there's been an additional buzz about the place, to quote the maestro Paul McStay, with the two new signings coming in. One of those signings is on the bench. One of them was still playing in Japan earlier on today. So we'll run through the team. We'll run through what we expect to see. Russell Boyce, it's match day 4. It's a big test. Preston, Scotty Sinclair coming back to, I think, a place where he himself said he enjoyed the best football of his life at Celtic Park. It will be good to see him back.
I think for me, Scotty Sinclair is a position that we've not managed to fill that void yet, Paul.
100%.
I am hoping from the footage I see of, and I said this on Twitter and I stand by it, the first Angie sign, mate, the first Angie sign that we've seen of this whole thing has been the under the radar signing or agreement, as it's called officially right now, of Kyogo. I feel that is a step that is hallmarks of Brendan Rodgers signing Scott Sinclair.
I like that, and I like the fact that you brought that up, because who has been the player over the last couple of seasons? Well, it's been Mohamed El-Yunusi. Now, El-Yunusi, I think, if you were to break it down with someone like Alan Morrison, for example, who looks at the deep dive into the stats, he would probably tell you that he was a very effective player for Celtic. It did seem to divide opinion a wee bit. I was a big fan, got to say. I was a big fan. Yeah, and I don't think I would have pushed the boat out for a £5 million signing plus wages to bring him in, I've got to say. But again, a lot of that was down to Celtic as a team last season and how we were performing, and the fact that he was playing on a very poor side where there was a real lack of leadership and direction last season. So he probably didn't benefit from that. But what we've brought in, like you say, is the first sign that Ange has his man. This is undoubtedly an Ange Postecoglou signing. He knows the market so well. I remember at the fan media conference, Russell, he was asked the question, would he be able to tap into these markets, the Australian market, the Japanese market, because he knows them so well. He had a wee laugh about it himself, and he actually mentioned the fact that Nakamura was still playing at 42. I think he's a wee bit younger than me, Boycey. He doesn't.
1978 he was born, so
you've got a bizarre knack of knowing football players' dates of birth, and I don't know if that comes down to Championship manager or what it might be. But what we've got here is we've got Kyogo Furuhashi, 26 years of age, which I like. I like a player at that stage of his career. I get the project signings. I get the players that we bring in 19, 20, 21, Boycey, where we can maybe make a profit on them. But I also think at this moment in time, we need first team ready, right out the oven, not right out the wrappers. And I think this is the type of player we're getting here. Coming in for the J-League, I think a lot of Celtic fans were watching that game, somehow streaming that game this morning, where he scored a goal.
That amazing, eh?
Well, you see that link in, you're linking into that market straight away. You're watching a Japanese game. We wouldn't be watching it ordinarily. The same thing will happen. We've seen it.
What's my catchphrase?
Flip it, mate. Flip it.
Flip it. And think of what they're then doing over to Celtic.
100%. We've seen it. We have seen it with the viewers coming in from Australia. Big shout out to everybody tuning in from Oz. Big Celtic fan base, as we know, and we're hoping to see the same in Japan. I don't know the highest we have reached in the Japanese charts so far, boys. We have hit number 1 in Lithuania, Vietnam, and a few other places. And who knows, Japan and Australia, we might smash those markets as well. I've noticed that you're in
to be top of the pops, Paul John Dykes. You know that.
Yeah. There's a certain era of top of the pops, mate, that I think I still fit into, and it's probably late 90s, early 2000s. And I'm always a wee bit out of step. Now, I notice that you are broadcasting from a completely different environment. That's because we had a bit of a mare this morning and you've had to go to your mum's to broadcast today. So
I had no Wi-Fi all day, mate. It's been a disaster. But
great effort.
Dedication to ACSOM. Came to my mum's house. Let's do it from there. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And you know something? There's something about these pre-season games. We were talking about the other day. I think it was me and Kev. What does a pre-season game mean to you? And I went, it's new signings. It's that excitement of going, I seen him first. I told you he was going to be a player. I love all that stuff, you know, or I told you he'd be rubbish. That's what the joy of being a football fan is pre-season games for me aren't about seeing, no offence to Callum McGregor, but doing Callum McGregor things. It's great to see him back, maybe looking better than ever, but the buzz is, who's the new guy? Who's the new guy we're getting to see? We love that. We're simpletons, really, when it comes to being a football fan. There's no point in trying to be over clever about it. One of the joys of being a football supporter is that summer window and the excitement and the unknown that it all entails.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to bring in Colin Watt to talk about the Bonnyrigg Rose game in any case. So, Colin Watt, welcome to the stream. Sporting the new away kit.
Yes.
Looking good. Yes. Looking good. Now, we were toying with the idea of perhaps doing a stream of the Colts game. We'll probably do that throughout the season, Colin. But I don't know if it was kick-off times on a Saturday and barbecues and free-flowing other things, possibly alcohol rather than football, that makes it hard for us to get a wee team of subscribers on a night like tonight. But you did tune in to the Bonnyrigg Rose. First and foremost, what I would say is expertly commentated on by our very own Amy Canavan.
Yes, so she did very well, Paul. She was also the camera operator for the game today as well, multitasking, so she was. And I mean, apart from a few hiccups, which I don't think was on their end, I think that was the hosting website, Facebook, who seemed to go down a couple of times. But no, an impressive performance. Look, I was just listening into you boys talking there, and Boycey was talking about new signings. Now, Boston Lowell, he's someone who kind of went under the radar. We signed him from Watford, under 21, academy player.
Did he just say the boss and Lowell in the same sentence?
He did, Russell.
Boston Lowell. Boston Low or Lowell, however we're going to pronounce his name. What a performance from that boy today. Outstanding at centre half. He partnered you and O2 in centre half today against two very physical strikers with a lot of lower league experience, and did not look a step out of place. I would not be surprised if we see him very quickly make the step up into the first team squad off the back of that performance today. He scored the only goal that Celtic managed today. They went 2-0 behind. To be fair to the Celtic B team, Bonnyrigg are one of the best teams in that Lowland League. I think they would have been really pushing Kelty Hearts last season if it wasn't for the fact that it was curtailed. So it's a very, very good performance from a team that was filled with guys that were playing in the under-16s and under-17 squad last season. And there's, watching that today, you've gathered some new names to keep an eye out for, including Bruno Davidson on the left-hand side, who had a fantastic performance and almost equalised for Celtic, and Brodie Patterson, who was out on loan at Queen's Park last year. The two of them down the left-hand side had a very good partnership forming in there. And to be honest, I think if Celtic play like that in the Lowland League, they'll win more games than they lose. So
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. No, great to hear. A couple of questions on the team, Colin. Firstly, Rudy Vata's son was playing.
Yes, Rocco Vata, 15 years old. What a kind of way to make your debut for Celtic in the Lowland League at 15. Again, none of those boys looked out of place today. They looked as if they stepped up. They're playing against fully grown men. They're playing against guys that's played League 1, League 2 in Scotland and made that step down to the Lowland League. And at that age, to make the performance that they did today was outstanding. One word I do want to pass on is our best wishes for everyone here at a Celtic State of Mind to Toby Oluwayemi, the goalkeeper. He went off of a head knock after colliding with one of the Bonnyrigg players and was replaced by Ryan Mullen. Hopefully it's not too serious and we'll see him back in, because he looked very impressive in between the sticks today.
Oh, definitely. So we've got Rudy Vata's son playing for the Colts. We've got Mark Burchell's daughter playing for the women's team.
Yep.
My memories of Rudy Vata were exclusively as a fan back in the day, and then I had the opportunity, because we need to get that black boot klaxon out every time my name drop, to play alongside Rudy Vata a number of times. I think half a dozen times, because ACSOM sponsors the Celtic Greats, and Rudy Vata is an absolute beast. I'm not kidding you. See, when you play with him, right, you would think it was the World Cup final. So he absolutely blasted me, rollicked me for playing somebody on side one day, to the point where he was calling me effing useless. You're never a left back. And I'm thinking, wow, Rudy, you're my hero, and you're talking to me like this. At half time, he had the goalkeeper like shaking. He was shaking in the corner. The goalie was taking his gloves off and turning to me and saying, "Can you play in goals?" He was absolutely bricking it to go out. He is ruthless. He does not hold back. And I love that about Rudy Vata.
What I heard though, Paul, actually Mark Hughes put the goalie gloves on in your behalf because you're such good pals.
Sparky was in charge that day. Boise. Nice one. But there you go, Rudy Vata's son, highly, highly rated. And I remember asking Rudy about him. He goes, he's all right. So he's a hard man to please. He's a hard man to please, is Rudy Vata. Just before I go back to Russell, Colin, thank you very much for joining us for an update on the Colts team. What's your prediction for today? I'm guessing you've seen the lineup.
Yeah, I've seen the lineup. Good to see some players hopefully getting some minutes in the legs, like guys like Roderick sitting on the bench. Ball and Golly, will he come on? Look, and also great to see Scott Sinclair back at Celtic Park. I just wish there was more fans there to welcome him back. I'm not jealous at all of the 2,000 fans there, and you can tell I'm absolutely lying saying that. No, it's
what about the 9? What about the 9,000? Are you one of those, Colin?
No, don't start. I felt like a kid who didn't get any presents at Christmas. That was horrible seeing all those.
Are they 9,000 the real hardcore fans, and we're all just plastic fans? Is that the way it's going to be?
We're the new generation. We're the new generation of fans.
The new breed. I think it was a new breed, wasn't it? Aye.
I think it's good to see guys like Montgomery getting minutes today as well. I'd like to see Abada coming on and see what he can do. Look, I think it will be another one of those pre-season games where the result doesn't matter much. It's about getting the minutes in the legs, especially ahead of the game on Tuesday night. But as always, you'd like to see Celtic getting the victory. So I'll go for a wee 2-1.
Just before you go, Colin, a question. I'm going to use a player that you're very fond of yourself, Luke O'Connell. So we're going into today's game. Luke O'Connell doesn't feature on the bench, and then there's 12 names being named as Celtic subs. So I don't know if we're going to get a whole new team at some stage. He's not involved in the Colts team. Don't think I've seen his name in the Colts team. Am I right?
He's too old.
So where does a player like Luke O'Connell sit? Because I love the Colts idea. I think it's brilliant. We've been banging on about it on the ACSOM podcast and bulletin for long enough. I wrote about the original 1968 proposition that Jock Stein made to the league back then. He wanted the Quality Street gang in the second division. There was only 2 divisions back then. It was knocked back. It's something that I think it's a great move, but I do have concerns for a certain group of players, Colin, such as Luke O'Connell, who are not quite in the first team, can't play for the Colts, and they're just floating. I mean, yeah, you can loan them out, but in terms of his Celtic career, are they just, are these guys going to be written off, do you think?
A guy, I mean, you could put him probably in the same bracket as someone like Ewan Henderson, who's been at the club now for a number of years. Yes, he's on the bench today, but when has he really been given the chance to make that impact? So I think we'll probably see guys like that go out on loan this year. Luke O'Connell is a really interesting one because his loan spell was only, 3 months at Queen's Park. That's the only sort of first-team football he's had since he departed Bolton. So if he doesn't make that breakthrough into the Celtic side this year, he'll probably be one that we say, well, that was just a failed experiment from Celtic, a kind of project player that Boise, you're not really a big fan of the project players. We need the first team players, but he's if he doesn't get his chance this year, he'll be written off. And do you know what? These are kind of low risk things for Celtic when you look at the fees that they're paying. Like guys like Boston Lawwell, who's just came in, Joey Dawson, who wasn't included in the Colts squad today. They're paying very low fees for these people, hoping that they'll get a return on their investment. So it's not as big a fail for me for someone like that not to make it someone like Bayo or Klamala, where you're spending £2.5-3 million on them. Yeah, so I'm happy enough for Celtic to sort of take those risks and keep it at that instead of spending £3.5 million on players in the Polish second division.
Fair comment, Colin. Fair comment. Now, enjoy the rest of the game. Today we won't see you at full time or at half time, but thank you very much for filling us in on the Colts, and we'll catch up with you next week, mate.
Take care, guys. All the best.
Thank you. So there you have it. That was the Colts earlier on. A couple of mentions there by Colin in relation to the starting lineup against Preston North End. I think what we'll do, Russell, is we'll just run through. I mean, Vasilis Barkas is back in between the sticks. He was a late call off. He, I think, dislocated a finger against Bristol City in the warm-up. I'm looking at Barkas, and I'll come to Ayeti as well. I'm actually putting him in the same boat here. I think there is an opportunity that they're going to get a second chance here. You know, they're in the kind of last chance or the second chance saloon at Celtic. Celtic look as though they might be trying to get a wee bit bang for their $5 million on the two of these players. I've still not seen anything from Barkas, I've got to say, that fills me with the confidence. I did like the fact that the way that Ange plays, where he gets his centre halves to spread out wide, goalkeeper pushes up. I think Barkas is suited to that. But when it comes to the goalkeeper, ability, the commanding of his area, I've not seen any of that. What's your thoughts on Barkas? Is that still a position we need to strengthen?
Sign David Marshall, job done. It's that simple. I'm not saying he's the greatest goalkeeper in the world, by the way. No, far from it. Someone who can just come in, slot in, no settling period, no bedding in nonsense. Someone who's more than capable. Someone who's got all the bags of experience in the world. In fact, probably from the howler at the Euros is going to benefit from. Get David Marshall signed. He is going to cost you next to nothing. And to me, he's the signing that we should have made last summer for the 10. I believe you own, and I've said this before, look at when Alan McGregor came back across the city. 37, 38 years old when he rejoined in. Was it a big deal? Didn't seem like one. Has it become a big deal? It has. He's a fantastic goalkeeper. He saves them points. David Marshall.
He's been their best signing, Russell. He's been the best signing over the last few seasons at Rangers, without a doubt.
And I believe that the same unruffling of feathers would happen across the city if we signed Marshall that perhaps happened when we signed when they signed McGregor. You would not be flustered by it, but before you know it, as their period goes on performing, you start taking notice. I just think for me, Marshall is a no-brainer. He's a no-brainer.
Well, there's been a few goalkeepers linked to the club, but I think I'm looking at Barkas and Ayeti, Russell, differently to a group of players which we'll come to, such as Ncham, Beaton, Christie, Ayer slightly different, who have been frozen out. It's quite clear that Ange is willing to use the two £5 million guys that came in last season. Right back again today, as predicted several months ago, Anthony Ralston starts at right back. I still get the feeling, though, with Tony Ralston, Russell, I get the feeling that he's still a stopgap. I think, a lot of managers believe that you get the root of the team first. You sort out the back line. And when you look at last season, and our biggest failings being at the back, yeah, it's exciting getting all the new guys in that we're signing, by the way, and I'm not knocking it because I'm not as excited as the next guy. But then I'm thinking we've still not got a towering centre-half. We've still not got the depth we need at full-back. We still don't have that commanding goalkeeper. So when I look at Tony Ralston, I still look at him as a stopgap. No disrespect to the boy. 22 years of age, been in and around the first team for 5 years now, Russell. What's your thoughts?
I've actually got Ralston in the back of the zippy, Paul, just because you keep going on a bit more the time. I mean, it's one of those ones that gave him another year. I think it's fair to say he's never been given a new contract on the basis, Paul, that this is the guy you're going to be our right back. I think by all means he's going to be a backup option, at the very best second choice, perhaps even third choice, maybe used in a different role as well. I have nothing against Ralston. Absolutely nothing against Ralston. I just don't. I think the level we're looking at when we're bringing in, you look 2 years ago, Christopher Julian coming in, £7 million.
Yeah.
And we brought in Edward, £9 million. We brought Dembele in. We knew it was a snip, the 400 grand, 450, whatever it was. We knew first team readies. Ralston's got his new deal to accommodate a squad fulfillment, making sure the squad has got the beef in numbers that's going to be required if the worst comes to the worst. I don't mean that in a bad way to Anthony Ralston. Absolutely not. But what I will also use as evidence, he never came back for St Johnstone or Dundee United, having set the head on a light. He never came back like Ryan Christie did, like a whirlwind from Aberdeen. And in fairness, even though the rave reviews Christie got, it took a freak incident to happen in that Scottish Cup match for him to get on the park. And okay, he grabbed it by, he grabbed it, he got the bit between his teeth and he grabbed it with both arms. Fair play. But you look at his spell at Aberdeen compared to what Ralston's done on similar SPFL level loan spells. He's never grabbed any headlines like Christie did.
He's not grasped it. I've always found it quite ironic that Christie made his name at Murrayfield for Celtic, because just about every single one of his shots would have probably got more points in a rugby stadium after that goal. But to be fair to him, a couple of goals against Aberdeen and Hearts last season were absolutely tremendous. I think the biggest issue with Ralston and also with Taylor on the left, and Taylor's not a player that I have criticised a great deal, I don't actually think that they fit Angie's master plan, the shape, because they two players are really offensive. They're finding themselves a lot of the time in the final third. Their delivery has to be spot on. I don't think either of the two of them is. It's going to be interesting today. Colin mentioned Bolingoli. Leo Connor's also on the bench. I wouldn't mind seeing them. The both of them, by the way, Russell. I wouldn't mind seeing both Bolingoli and Leo Connor getting some minutes today, just to see what they can do, because I've not been overly impressed by Ralston and Taylor. By the way, I don't think they've had any particularly bad games. I just haven't been overly impressed with them. So I would like to see Bolingoli and Leo Connor, who Colin raves about as well, given a run and seeing what they can do at fullback. Interesting, Urhoghide partner Stephen Welsh today. I think Urhoghide is definitely a centre half, Russell, going by his performance against Bristol City. But again, there's a real feeling.
He played right back first game, Paul. Sorry to interrupt, but does it help that he played right back first game? Now he's centre back, and like between two pre-season matches, two different positions for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. Is that beneficial already? No, because as I say, football's a simple thing. Fans make judgments at these times early, and there'll be a million people saying, Osaze, oh yeah, I told you he'd be a player, or not to go into it, but perhaps the alternative of that, based on a position, a performance he played at right back. I don't want him to get judged this early, but I also don't like the fact he's playing two positions in the space of 3 pre-season games.
Yeah.
He's not getting hung out to dry because the stage he's playing on isn't that big. But unfortunately, well, thankfully for us, we live in a world where we analyse everything. And sometimes the jury can be out. It can make its decision very quickly as well sometimes. And these pre-matches are becoming something they never used to be, Paul. Do you know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. I'll go back to that point you made early doors about what is a pre-match, what is a pre-season game. I think Urhoghide would have got a fright on the right-hand side, because we don't play your traditional full-back who's basically playing the right side of defence. We play someone who's overlapping, someone who in the final third is expected to find a man, sometimes hit the byline and cross, and that has been very prevalent since Ange Postecoglou came in. Urhoghide's not that player. I think he's the type of player who's going to win a lot of balls in the air. He's going to win a lot of tackles. He's big, strong and imposing. And that was an issue when I seen him at right back. He was expected to have the ball on the deck, run with it, find a pass. I don't think he's that player. I really don't. Moving into the midfield, I've got to say, Callum McGregor, brilliant to see him.
See, just before, I know, I feel like I'm taking over here. Last thing I want to do. But see, Natasha said a comment last week which got jumped on by the other side of the city about we've not replaced, or we've not, if something to do with we've not replicated the money we've sold for, the money we've brought in, etc. We've not replaced properly. it got took out of context, and some guy who's calling himself an accountant wants to go, imagine putting that as your Twitter name. Blah, 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 the accountant. Well done, mate. But what he was saying, he completely missed Natasha's point. We sold Kieran Tierney for £25 million, and we brought in a £3 million defender and a £2 million defender to replace those positions. Mm-hmm. That is not replacing the deficit of what we've lost. That was the point I believe that Natasha was trying to make. It wasn't about the actual financial golf, but if you look at Bolingoli, where he came from, what his experience was, and you look at Greg Taylor, and you look at the world-class player you've sold, did we adequately replace Kieran Tierney? Was he always going to be a huge hole in the team? Of course he was, unless you replaced that adequately. And there was a disparity, Paul, with what we brought in to replace a player of that ilk. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I agree with that. I don't think we've replaced either of the fullbacks. We continually buy in right backs and left backs, and we've never brought one in of the quality that's required. By the way, we understand you're not going to go out and buy a like for like. Tierney was a one-off. He's a generational thing. We're not going to see that for a long time. But we've not brought in anybody of a sufficient quality to push on domestically, never mind in Europe.
If we sell a player, Paul, for £20 million like Dembele, but we spend £9 million on Edouard, I'm content with that. Yep. I feel that's a decent sort of ratio. Do you know what I mean? And no matter what Edouard goes for, we'll make our money back at the very least, right? And we'll look at the years we had off him and go, brilliant work, mate. Thank you, right? And that he will be looked back favourably when we all get over the 10. Edouard's career at Celtic will be looked at favourably. Easy for me to say. But I look at Tierney getting sold for £25 million, and we buy a replacement for £3 million, and then we think, oh well, let's no back down, double down, buy another left back for £2 million, and you start going, well, why not buy a £6-7 million left back? And just I don't mind. No one at Celtic is realistic enough. None of us as fans aren't realistic enough to understand that players go for big money, but I don't think it's respectful enough to us as a support or realistic enough to be bringing in players for 10% of the fee you've sold the guy before in that position. Is that really, and then you look at the examples of when you don't do that, it tends to work. I think for a lot of people, maybe the jury's out on Julien. For me, I'm telling you, he's going to become someone we idolise. I'm convinced of that. And I thought that was an ambitious move. £7 million, obviously 2 years after we sold Van Dijk. But I just think the disparity of selling a player for big money, no one minds that. And no one blames Christopher Ayer, for example, for going for 13.5. But I want the replacement to be closer to what we've sold for, as opposed to, we'll just chuck 2 million at that, and 3 months later, that's what we'll chuck another 2 million at someone else. Why not just keep bridging that gap, Paul? Because the formula works. Yeah,
it does. It does. I think the best example of it is Edouard. Like you say, a lot of people might disagree with Julien at this moment in time, but I think that I will only judge him once he gets back in and back to full fitness. I want to pinpoint the two wide guys, Owen Moffat, Adam Montgomery. I think what they've done is they have grasped the nettle in this pre-season. It's brilliant that they're both getting a start. I don't expect them both to finish the game. But you look at these two young guys and you think to yourself, we didn't know a great deal about them in terms, I know Montgomery played a couple of games last season. They call Moffat the Denny Deco, so obviously they know all about him and Denny. But these two guys could be in it. Brilliant, eh? We've just brought in two very exciting signings who play in these two positions. Can you imagine this season, Moffat and Montgomery learning from these guys on the training ground, day in, day out, and being in and around the first team and picking up a few appearances? I would love to see them picking up quite a few appearances this season. They're two guys I think that we've won a watch with. We didn't expect to be going into a game with the performances we've got out of Moffat and Montgomery. So it's a huge bonus for us, Russell, I believe, going into the Champions League game and into the domestic campaign with these two kids.
I believe if we're led to believe what we've been told about Ange and the reason why he is such a fantastic coach, which, again, we've looked over the numbers, for me, they don't add up as well as what other folk wanted to decorate it as. That's all yesterday's news, though. But the one reputation he came with is youth players developing under Ange. He brings young players, he makes them better footballers. So the great thing about Moffat, Montgomery, getting the chance they got is if Ange thinks they've done well enough, you get the vibe he's going to then go, brilliant, put them in. And he's going to give them the opportunity. I'm all for that. And it's a lot better than I like with Paddy Roberts getting declared, in 4 weeks' time before the transfer window shuts, isn't it?
No, it is. Yeah, absolutely. As much as I love Paddy. Now, we've just kicked off, Russell, so we'll go to the action and we'll rejoin Russell Boyce at halftime for the ACSOM Bulletin. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you.